Welcome to another episode of Spirited Dialogue hosted by Transformity. I'm Asanka and
I'm Gautham Palapa.
In our last episode, we dig in deep into first principles and we had a look at why first principles are really important for the organizations, as well as look at how it can apply for product development, as well as we took a 360 view of first principles with a few examples we encountered during our close relationships with large enterprises. So we thought of pick a related topic today, moving from first principles into value. I think when it comes to the complex marketplaces as well as economy we are facing today, value is really important. But unfortunately, when we are speaking about value, people think it's about the financial benefits that they are gaining from the activities that we do. But it is beyond that. It's about how we can provide value for all stakeholders, including customers, employees, and shareholders of the organization, as well as sometimes to the community, because when we start providing value to the first three stakeholders, we are generating value for the community as well. One good example is when the golden days of automobile, how the automobile industry feed into Detroit and then help the community to grow with that. And it happened in Silicon Valley as well, where both of us currently located. It helped to bring the environment and entire community to a next level by providing value inside this organization. So I think when it comes to value, there are three things: alignment of purpose, performance, and the principles of the organization. So I know, Gautam, you speak about this a lot. So why don't you start with why? Because explaining why will be really important for our audience.
Oh, thank you. And I completely agree with you. The way people traditionally look at value is mostly financial, which is not truly the case. Business value is a comprehensive measure of impact, adaptability, and shareholder enrichment. That's how we need to look at it. And it encapsulates the sustainable benefits that are derived from aligning resources, operations, innovation, and strategic with the strategic goals of the org. Um, and I like the example that you gave about the automobile industry or any of these towns that grew up because of the factories or the workforce, right? It's in a weird way, it's kind of coming back again because there are a lot of companies that are starting to build townships that will support their own organization. So looks like retro is back. So we'll see how that flushes out. But let's go back to your question. So let's talk about why identifying business value has to be the first starting point for any transformation. The first thing is understanding what value is created by the organization sets the North Star and the purpose for all activities within an organization. It helps guide leaders and teams to understand the why. That is the purpose for the organization and why there is a digital transformation that is required, right? People can understand what they have achieved and why they are striving so hard to transform the organization. And it clearly defines the path and ensures that the transformation efforts are aligned to the strategic or the business goals. So there are more commonly eight major reasons why we need to spend time identifying business value. The first one is always starting with why. That there's a great book by Simon Sinek who has Start with Why. He dives into really good details and has a lot of stories about why every organization has to start with the why or the purpose. And it really makes that organization come off very different because there's a fundamental understanding of the reason that they exist. The next thing is alignment. We need to make sure that there is strong alignment with the organizational goals. Like generating business value in an area that does not align with what the organization wants to achieve means that that is wasteful. It may not be valuable. So we want to make sure that there is alignment with the organizational value. We need to identify this upfront. Organizations should be able to ensure that their transformation initiatives are aligned and they're driving towards that overall business strategy. The third one is resource allocation. These are hard initiatives, and we have to prioritize and allocate resources efficiently. And by resources, I mean the things, the processes, the ways in which things have to work, and the technologies. Not all technologies or projects are going to deliver equal value. So understanding that potential return on investment allows these organizations to invest the resources where they will yield the highest returns. This is also where, and I know in a blog post you and I had written about this, where developing a priority or a value matrix for the organization's initiatives is so critical. It promotes that data-driven observation and decision making, and it's not just emotional prioritization. After that, you have risk mitigation. This is self-explanatory. Digital transformations by default is pretty much managing and reducing the amount of risk that an organization is taking. That's truly what it is. So you're transforming the organization to reduce and mitigate risks. That is financial, technological, operational, you name it. So identifying the business value upfront will help organizations assess the risk with each initiative and develop countermeasures to mitigate them. And then we've talked a lot about objectives, but it's not just objectives, but measuring them is really important. That's another thing. And then a cultural alignment, like digital transformation requires cultural shift within an organization. And so understanding the business value and communicating it efficiently will allow the employees and stakeholders to better understand the purpose and the benefits of these changes, which can foster support and buy-in for the transformation. And then there are so many books about this, and there are so many theories around customer-centric approaches, and almost every successful company is either customer-centric or customer-obsessed. You and I have talked about it as an experience economy and a
Yeah.
value-based economy where we want to deliver the best experience to the customer, and that is the value. And then finally, we have agility and adaptability. Everything is in flux. We have so much of dynamic changes going on. The business landscape is continuously evolving, and new technologies are emerging every day. I mean, just taking a look at the CNCF landscape every day, I mean, just by the time we finish this recording, I'm pretty sure there are a number of other projects that are added. I mean, like it's crazy out there, right? So having the wherewithal to be agile and adaptive is another reason why we need to understand the business value and identify it within our organization. So these are the 8 things that I feel are the biggest drivers. But at the end of the day, we need to not limit ourselves just to the financial value, but we also need to look at things from not just a revenue perspective, but from a people perspective, a cost perspective, a risk perspective, and an innovation perspective.
Yeah, I really like one thing you mentioned about resources, and you position resources as the processes and associated stuff, not people,
Correct.
because I hate calling people as resources. And
Yeah.
one of the most valuable things we see inside and outside the organizations are people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing I notice sometimes when we discuss these type of concepts, people think these are constants, but it's not, because the value can change, value has to evolve, as well as there's no end game, right? Because the destination is a journey,
Yeah.
and thing has to change, because there are sometimes people misinterpret these things, and then they are reluctant to change because they believe the value and the purpose they identified 10 years before still remain as it is. And that is one challenge that I see in these large transformation projects, especially people got a like big longevity inside the organization. They are reluctant to change by sticking to these kind of treating the value as a constant. I think that leads to the next topic that I would like to get some insight from you about now. We spoke about why and what it is, and then I think the next important thing is how we are going to identify the value and kind of to measure it, because what I have seen, it is something, especially the executives are struggling and then not have a clear idea on identifying the value.
Yeah. I want to go back to what you said, because you mentioned something that is really critical. The minute an organization or even a person, a human being, stops changing or evolving, they are going to become extinct. That is a finite. That has been proven over years and years and years. But somehow, when we go into an organization, we tend to forget that. I mean, we as humans in our personal lives, we evolve every day. We embrace new information. We make changes. Like, even uh, if you are driving to a particular location and you have a GPS and there's traffic coming in, you will divert when your GPS says, "Hey, there's a better route. Do you want to take it?" I don't know a lot of people who are actually going to say, nope, I'm going to stick with this and I am perfectly comfortable sitting in bumper to bumper traffic for about 2 hours, just because I had decided to go down that road. But somehow, when we go into an organization, we tend to forget that. So, that is a critical thing that we do need to embrace, is that there is constant change. And as long as we understand what business value we are delivering, the how is going to change consistently. And sometimes, because there are market shifts, because the customer wants things differently, we will learn and we will change. Um, I forget what book this is, but I think it is either by Malcolm. I think it's by Malcolm Gladwell, and he talks about these things about an existential flex, um, where organizations, they start realizing that their current business model is not going to be beneficial, and so they have to switch and move to another one. So, I don't know if it's Malcolm Gladwell, but or it could be Adam Grant, one of the two, because those are two phenomenal readers. I will find that out and I will post it in our show notes. But
And there's
uh,
another book called B 2.0 by Bill Collins. Again, it's talking about the same thing.
yep, pretty much. Um, so, enough of that rant. Let's go to how to identify what is valuable for the organization. And so, one of the anti patterns that I've seen is that leaders in enterprise and an organization, they think that there is going to be only one set of value for the entire organization. That is not true. You need to have two different levels at least. You need to have separate discussions for strategic value, and then a separate discussion for the operational value. That is at the corporate level or the executive level, at the C-suite, or maybe the change agents or the transformational leader level. And then afterwards, you need to have one at a team or a departmental level. So, unfortunately, and I'm sure, Asanka, you have the same experience, we found that organizations do not separate these two, which causes teams or the workforce to not clearly understand the value that's being created. So, let's actually divide them into two different things. Let's begin with the strategic or the organizational value. So, to define business value at the organizational level is a complex process, and it involves considering various strategic, financial, and operational factors. Right? This business value can be understood as the worth, the benefits or contributions an organization provides to its stakeholders, and these stakeholders are customers, they are shareholders, they are employees, and even society. So this value can manifest in a number of ways, and the most common ones are financial value. And there are many ways to do it, like profitability, depreciation, EBITDA, taxes, net profit, ROI, those kind of things, revenue growth, and then shareholder value. Like that's the very common one. Then you have customer value, right? The value that we're providing to a customer, like the amount of pain we're reducing or the delight that we're producing to a customer, the customer satisfaction and loyalty, the net promoter scores or the value proposition. So around those, we're going to have business value that we identify. And then we'll have operational efficiencies like process optimization and employee productivity and quality are some of the ways and some of the areas that you identify business value. From a strategic position like market share or innovation or branding or brand reputation, those are things that we need to consider as well. Then we have the societal and environmental values like corporate social responsibility. Maybe there's a lot of value that is got by having those things like charitable endeavors or educational programs, community involvement, sustainability efforts, and then ethical practices, building a positive culture and improving the psychological safety. So having employee satisfaction and engagement, increasing that, like there is a lot of business value to be had when you increase the satisfaction level, like the ENPS score within the organization, talent attraction and retention. And we've had some spirited dialogues on both talent attraction and retention in the past, training and development, and then risk management, right? Resilience and continuity and compliance. So as you can see, you have multiple areas that we have to define the business value at a strategic level. It is not just customer focused and not just financial focused. There are other things that we have to do, and this has to tie into our corporate goals. And that's where, as a leader, we need to operate and have the right people when we are trying to flush out this business value and align on it at a strategic level.
Yeah, I think you made a really good point that entire organization should be part of this because one thing that I have observed, people think that it's only a responsibility of the field teams or the external facing teams, but it's not only that. Like everybody has a role to play and they have to be part of the this value generation process. And one another thing, I think once we define these values, it has to be embedded into the culture because sending a mandate or speaking about this in a town hall will not provide the results. So it has to be part of the day-to-day stuff that the people involve, and it has to be embedded into the culture heavily.
I agree. And that's why you should have a separate workshop or a conversation at a departmental or a team level because
Yeah,
you have to define it at a much more granular level than the organizational, right?
yeah,
It requires understanding the specific goals, responsibilities, and contributions of each team,
yeah.
and then linking those to the broader organizational objectives. So the first step in all of this is to have clarity. We need to be unambiguous and have really good clarity about the why. Like establishing clear objectives for each team and department. What are they responsible for? Why do they exist? What exactly is the value that each team is going to deliver? What are the key deliverables? How do they connect to the company's larger goals? That's really, really important. If we don't have that connectivity, it is going to be really hard to showcase and prove to each of the team member that what they're doing actually adds value.
Exactly. And I think these things should be socialized heavily as well. As an example, the onboarding programs for new employees, they have to emphasize this heavily, especially not the young kids who's coming out of college, people coming from other corporations, because they are coming with the mindset and a specific set of values that they have in mind. So changing that at the beginning and giving a clear picture is very important, as
Yeah.
well as highlight this clearly in the website will be really helpful to attract the correct people because anyone will go to the website before where they apply for a job, right? So if they
Right.
can understand these values and on board with that first, that will be a good first step and a good filtering process when you get the specific people to the organization.
Yeah, yeah. So, in a couple of my previous roles, what I've done is I've actually made a mind map of everything from the company goals, the corporate goals that connect to the strategic goals, to the tactical goals, and then to the operational goals, so that every team um, has the ability to understand how their initiatives are moving and driving different strategic goals within the organization, and that's actually provided a lot of clarity. That there are discussions that are had saying if there is a new initiative that comes up, what strategic goal does it drive? And again, that's where having that value matrix is so important. The other thing, and you mentioned that it has to be part of the behavior. Um, One of the best ways to do that is to convert this to have the right performance measures that will change the behavior and drive to the business value. So having your key performance indicators or objectives and key results, you pick which, the KPIs or OKRs, but at the end of the day you have those performance measures that gives insight to a team's performance and contribution to the overall business value. That's how we need to help make it part of the thing, of the culture of an organization. And then you have the feedback loops. We have to establish those mechanisms to collect the feedback. So when we are identifying the business value at a team level, we need to identify what are the objectives or what is the value that the team is going to provide, what are the performance measures that they have to hit, what kind of feedback loops they have to implement, any kind of business value around cost efficiency, because obviously we need to efficiently use the resources, be it time or money or tools. And so cost efficiency and process optimization go hand in hand there. Innovation value, business value, because of innovation and continuous improvement is something that we can do. And then afterwards, collaboration and synergy. Maybe in the before the digital transformation has taken place, maybe there's been a lot of silos, and so one of the business values that can be intrinsically generated for the teams is the amount of time that they're collaborating across the silos or across the various functional groups, how much of synergy that they're bringing in. I'll give an example. We talk about shifting left most of the time when it comes to development, uh, and requirements and testing. How about bringing security in? Have them also be part of it and bring them up front. So you measure them, say the business value is that you are collaborating on X number of projects and making sure that all of these teams and ancillary teams are engaged up front with other departments and how they create synergy. And if you measure that, that really adds a lot of business value. So we have that. Learning and development is another thing. Risk management, problem solving, those are obviously there. Um, I highly recommend that when we are identifying business value for teams and departments, we have to have some around culture and morale. It's very intangible, but when we put that out there, we are as leaders telling the or telling the teams and the departments that we are committed to ensuring that we are developing a psychologically safe environment and a positive culture. And that will help reduce so many problems, and it will bring in a much more positive culture out there. So these are some of the ways by which at a departmental level or at a team level we can bring in the business value.
Exactly. I think if at some point your boss asks you, like, what are you working on? I think that's a good indicator that you are not adding value to the top line value stream. So I think go back and take a look if that question comes, whether the code you write, the article you write, LinkedIn post that you put, or any other thing that you are doing, whether you are adding to the value stream of the organization. I think this was a great conversation, and we spoke a lot about the business value of the organization. And as I mentioned you on the other day, like even I feel the experience economy is moving towards the value economy, and we will speak more about that topic in the future. And for the benefit of the audience, why don't you summarize the conversation, Gautam?
Sure. So let's do a TLDR, right? The first thing is identifying business value at the outset of a digital transformation is essential for strategic planning, for resource allocation, risk management, and ensuring alignment with the organization's long-term goals. Um, these are not set in stone. They are going to change in time. So if the organization is not going to be adaptive and agile, it is going to have a problem. It'll probably die off the vine. So make sure that you acknowledge that there is going to be change. So by doing so, these organizations can increase the likelihood of successful and meaningful transformation and yield those tangible benefits and competitive advantages that which is the true reason why we are doing a digital transformation in the first place. Having a value matrix or a priority matrix will help drive data-driven decision making and reduce that emotional prioritization. The conversation should be more about the value being generated and not just financial gains. But there are 7 other areas that we talked about. We need to have separate efforts to identify the business value created at the organizational level and at a team or a departmental level. So it's not just the C suite and the VPs and the executives who go off to a planning session or an offsite and develop the value out there. We need to then have separate conversations for each department head who has been part of that strategic conversation to come and disseminate the same thing at a team or a departmental level. We need to make sure that there is connectivity. And sometimes these two are going to be very different, and we need to make sure that there is a good way to show the connectivity. There are many ways to do it, like you can have information radiators, you can constantly reiterate it, you can talk about it on your website to attract people who are aligned with those kinds of things. There's so many ways to do it. It also helps the workforce understand what the digital transformation entails and how their work drives organizational value and success, making their work more meaningful and providing significant clarity to their why or their purpose.
Great. I think you all enjoy our conversation. And if you need more information and clarity, please contact us through the contact us form, or you can connect us through LinkedIn. Happy to help and continue this conversation. So, till we meet in another episode, thank you all for joining, and we will come up with another interesting topic in our next episode. Cheers.
Cheers.